The Great Hall of the Galaxy Council was the largest building in the known universe. It floated in the center of neutral space, far from any star or planet. Inside, thousands of alien species gathered to make laws and keep peace. For 300 years, humanity had sat in this hall. They had worked hard. They had helped everyone. And they had received nothing but insults in return. Admiral stood at the entrance of the hall. He was 60 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served humanity for 40 years. He had fought in wars, signed treaties, and shaken hands with creatures that had no hands. Today would be his last day in this place. Beside him stood Ambassador. She was younger, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a calm face. She carried a small tablet in her hands. On that tablet was the official document, the document that would change everything. "Are you ready?" asked her quietly. Nodded. "I have been ready for 10 years. They walked into the hall together. The ceiling was so high that clouds formed near the top. Thousands of alien delegates sat in floating chairs arranged in a great circle. In the center was a platform where speakers would stand. The delegate saw them first. He was tall and blue with 4 arms and no nose. "Ah, the humans are here," he said loudly. "Late as always. What excuse do you have today?" Some delegates laughed. Others made sounds that meant the same thing. Did not respond. He walked to the center platform with beside him. The room slowly became quiet. Everyone was watching them. "Honored delegates," began. Her voice was steady and clear. "For 300 years, humanity has been a member of this council. We joined with hope. We believed in unity. We believed that different species could work together for the good of all." The delegate, a creature made of living stone, made a grinding noise. "Get to the point, human. We have important matters to discuss." Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Of course, I will be brief." She held up her tablet. "This is our official notice of withdrawal. As of this moment, humanity is leaving the Galaxy Council." For a long moment there was complete silence. Then the hall exploded with noise. Some delegates laughed. Others shouted. A few looked confused. The council speaker, an ancient being called Elder, raised his many tentacles for silence. "This is unexpected," he said slowly. "Perhaps the humans are making a joke." "No joke," said. He stepped forward, his boots heavy on the metal platform. "We are leaving, effective immediately." "But why?" asked a small delegate from the Myra system. She was one of the few who had always been kind to humans. "What have we done?" Turned to look at her. "What have you done? Let me tell you." He began to walk in a slow circle, looking at the delegates one by one. "When they attacked the outer colonies, we asked for help. You said it was not your problem. 3 million humans died." The delegate shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. "When we developed faster engines," continued, "you demanded we share the technology for free. We agreed, hopping for friendship. You took our engines and gave us nothing. When plague struck our home world," added, "we begged for medical supplies. You charged us 10 times the normal price. You watched our children die and counted your profits." The hall was very quiet now. "And every day," said, his voice growing harder, "every single day you insult us. You call us primitive. You say we are lucky to be here. You treat us like servants, not equals." Elder waved a tentacle dismissively. "These are old complaints. Every species has difficulties. You cannot simply leave because of hurt feelings." "We can," said, "and we are." "You will regret this," the delegate said. His stone body made a sound like rocks falling. "Without the council, Earth will be alone, unprotected. Any species could attack you." Laughed. It was not a happy sound. "You think we are weak. You have forgotten something important." He pressed a button on his wrist. The great windows of the hall suddenly showed the space outside. Thousands of human ships floated there. Battleships, carriers, destroyers. More military power than most species had ever seen. The delegates gasped and murmured in shock. "We have been preparing," said simply, "for a long time." "This is a threat," the delegate shouted. No, said calmly. It is a goodbye. We will not attack anyone. We will simply leave. All human workers, engineers, pilots, doctors, and diplomats will return to Earth within 1 month. All human businesses will close. All human trade routes will end. You cannot do this, Elder said, but his voice was uncertain now. Watch us, replied. Delegate, a young human assistant who had been standing in the corner, walked forward. He bowed to and with respect. Then he turned to face the alien delegates. I have worked here for 5 years, said quietly. I have translated your languages. I have fixed your ships. I have solved your problems. Not once did any of you say thank you. Not once did you treat me as an equal. He removed his council badge and dropped it on the floor. Goodbye. One by one, other human workers in the hall did the same. Engineers, translators, guards, and doctors. They removed their badges and walked toward the exit. The aliens watched in stunned silence. Wait, the Myra delegate said. Please, we can discuss this. We can make changes. Shook her head. It is too late for that. You had 300 years to treat us with respect. You chose not to. Now we choose to leave. Took one last look around the great hall. He had spent so many years here, hoping things would get better. They never did. Remember this day, he said to the delegates. Remember that you did this to yourselves. Then he turned and walked away, and followed. The doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. Outside looked at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, home. He felt something he had not felt in a long time, hope. Do you think they understand? Asked. Not yet, said, but they will. Soon they will understand exactly how much they needed us. The human ships began to move, turning away from the council station. One by one, they jumped into hyperspace, leaving trails of light behind them. In the great hall, the aliens began to argue. Some said good riddance. Others worried about what this meant. Elder sat in his chair and felt something cold in his heart. Fear. He did not know it yet, but the Galaxy Council had just made the biggest mistake in its history, and they would pay for it in ways they could not imagine. The humans were gone, and everything was about to fall apart. 3 months had passed since the humans left. At first, the Galaxy Council celebrated. They held parties and made speeches about how the galaxy was better without those primitive creatures. The delegate even proposed a holiday to mark the day the humans departed. But slowly, things began to change. It started with small problems. A trade ship broke down in the outer rim. The captain called for repairs, but no one answered. The mechanics who usually fixed such ships were human. They were gone now. Find someone else, the trade master ordered. They searched for 3 days. They found an engineer who said he could help. He looked at the engine and scratched his stone head. I do not understand this design, he admitted. It is human technology. Only humans know how to fix it. The ship sat dead in space for 2 weeks before they finally towed it to a station. By then, the cargo had spoiled. 10 million credits lost. This happened again and again across the galaxy. Delegate's younger brother had stayed behind on a distant planet. He was not part of the council withdrawal because he worked for a private company, but even he noticed the changes. The station is falling apart, he reported in a message to his family on Earth. The air recyclers are failing. The engineers cannot figure out how to fix them. They keep asking if any humans are still around. His sister received the message on Earth. She showed it to her father, a retired diplomat named Elder. Read the message and nodded slowly. It is beginning, he said, just as we predicted. Should we help them? Asked. No, replied firmly. They must learn, if we help now nothing will change. They will use us and insult us again. Let them struggle. Back on the council station, Elder was having a very bad day. His assistant rushed into his office with terrible news. They are fighting again, the assistant said. A border dispute. Both sides are moving warships into position. Groaned, "Send the mediators." "We cannot," the assistant said nervously. "The mediators were human. We have no one else trained for this." Stared at him. "What do you mean we have no one else? Surely some of our own species can mediate." The assistant shook his head. "We tried. The mediator sided with the, they made things worse." This was the problem no one had expected. Humans were neutral. They did not belong to any alien faction or ancient alliance. When they mediated disputes, both sides trusted them to be fair. Without humans, every mediator had bias. Sent a message to Earth asking for help. He made it sound casual, like he was doing the humans a favor by letting them come back. The response came 1 day later. It was very short. "No." "What do you mean, no?" shouted at his communication screen. "You must help us." There was no reply. The border dispute grew worse. 3 ships were destroyed. The lost 2 stations. Thousands died on both sides. Finally, both species agreed to stop fighting, but only because they ran out of ammunition. Meanwhile, the trade routes were collapsing. Human pilots had mapped most of the safe paths through dangerous space. They knew which routes avoided black holes, radiation storms, and pirate territories. This knowledge was stored in human databases. When the humans left, they took those databases with them. "We will make new maps," the trade master declared confidently. They sent out 10 mapping ships. Only 3 came back. The others flew into dangers that human pilots had known to avoid for centuries. On the planet Cora, a farming world that fed 12 systems, the harvest machine stopped working. A Myra technician opened one of the machines and stared at the complex parts inside. "This was built by humans," she said to her supervisor. "I do not know how to repair it." "Then learn," her supervisor shouted. She tried. She really tried. But human engineering was different. Humans thought in ways that other species did not. They combined technologies in unexpected ways. They built machines that were simple on the outside but incredibly complex on the inside. The harvest machine stayed broken. The crops rotted in the fields. Millions of beings went hungry. Elder received reports of all these problems on Earth. He sat in his garden, drinking tea and reading each report carefully. "They are suffering," his daughter said. She felt some pity for the aliens despite everything. "Yes," agreed, "but not enough, not yet." "Father, people are dying." Looked at her with sad eyes. "People died when they refused to help us during the plague. Children died. Your mother died." He set down his tea. "I do not wish suffering on anyone, but they must understand. They must truly understand what they did to us and what we meant to them." Was quiet for a long time, then she nodded. "I understand, Father." At the council station, a new problem arose. The translators were gone. The galaxy had thousands of languages. Humans had spent centuries learning them all. They had developed translation devices and trained specialists who could help any species communicate with any other. Now meetings became chaos. They spoke, but they did not understand. The Myra tried to explain, but their words came out wrong. Arguments started over simple misunderstandings. "You called my mother a swamp creature," the delegate shouted. "I said your proposal needed more consideration," the Myra delegate replied desperately. The translator made an error. Fights broke out. Alliances crumbled. Species that had been friends for centuries now looked at each other with suspicion. A young council worker named Bora watched all of this with growing horror. But she had always admired humans. She had even learned some of their language in secret. "This is wrong," she said to her colleague. "We should not have let them leave." "Do not say such things," her colleague warned. "The council says humans were a burden. We are better without them." "Does this look better to you?" Bora gestured at the chaos around them. "Ships broken, trade stopped, wars starting, people starving. How is this better?" Her colleague had no answer. That night, Bora sent a secret message to Earth. She did not know if anyone would read it, but she had to try. "Please," she wrote, "I know my people treated you badly. I know we do not deserve your help, but innocent beings are suffering. Children are hungry. Is there nothing you can do?" On Earth, a young woman named received the message. She was a junior diplomat just starting her career. She brought the message to her supervisor. "What should we do?" she asked. Her supervisor, an old man named Jin, read the message carefully. "Nothing," he said finally. "We do nothing." "But she is asking for help. She seems sincere." "Many of them seem sincere now," Jin said. "But where was this sincerity when we needed it? Where were these kind words when our ships were attacked, when our people were dying?" Looked at the floor. "I understand, but it feels wrong to ignore suffering." Jin's face softened. "I know, it goes against our nature. Humans want to help. That is who we are. But sometimes helping too soon makes things worse. They must learn to value us before we return. Otherwise, history will repeat itself." Nodded slowly. She deleted Bora's message as ordered, but she did not forget it. Across the galaxy, the cracks were spreading. Systems that had worked perfectly for centuries were failing. Peace that had lasted for generations was breaking. Prosperity that everyone had taken for granted was fading. And it was only the beginning. Elder sat alone in his office, staring at report after report of disasters. He finally admitted something to himself that he had been denying for months. "We needed them," he whispered to the empty room. "We needed the humans, and we never even knew it." Outside his window, a trade ship drifted past, its engines dead, waiting for repairs that might never come. In the distance, the lights of 1,000 stars twinkled coldly. The galaxy was starting to understand, but understanding would not be enough to fix what was broken. 8 months after the humans left, war came to the galaxy. The Enda had been rivals for 1,000 years. They had fought many times before, but humans had always stopped the wars before they grew too large. Human diplomats would travel between both sides, talking, listening, finding solutions. Humans had a gift for understanding what others needed. They could see past anger and find common ground. Now there were no human diplomats, and the old hatred between them burned hotter than ever. It started with an insult. A commander said something unkind about the emperor. The words were not even that bad, but without proper translators, the message became twisted. By the time it reached the emperor, it sounded like a declaration of war. "They dare mock me," the emperor roared. "Prepare the fleets." They were surprised when warships appeared at their border. "What is the meaning of this?" their leader demanded. "You know what you did," the admiral replied. "Apologize or face destruction." "We did nothing. You are mad." Neither side would back down. Neither side understood what had gone wrong, and so the first shots were fired. On Earth, the news of the war spread quickly. People gathered around screens to watch the distant battles. Some cheered, happy to see their former tormentors fighting each other. Others felt sick, knowing that innocent beings were dying. The young diplomat watched the reports with growing sadness. "So many deaths," she said. "So much destruction for what? A misunderstanding." Her mentor Jin sat beside her. His face was hard to read. "This is what happens when hatred is left to grow. Humans kept the peace not because we were powerful, but because we listened. We translated not just words, but meanings. We understood not just languages, but hearts." "Can we do nothing?" "We could end this war in a week," Jin admitted. "One delegation, a few meetings, and it would be over. Both sides would see their mistake. Both sides would apologize." He shook his head slowly. "But we cannot. Not yet. They must feel the full weight of their choices." The war grew worse. The attacked mining colonies, the struck supply lines, planets were bombed, stations were destroyed. Millions fled their homes, becoming refugees with nowhere to go. And then other species got involved. The Myra had old treaties with the They were pulled into the war to defend their allies. They had debts to thee and sent ships to support them. Soon, what started as a conflict between two species became a galaxy-wide disaster. At the council station, Elder tried desperately to restore order. He called emergency meetings. He begged delegates to negotiate, but no one listened. "You side with the delegate accused. "I side with no one," replied. "I want peace." "Then make the apologize. They believe you insulted them first." Round and round the arguments went, never reaching any solution. Was not a mediator. He did not have the skills. He did not have the patience. And most importantly, he did not have the trust of both sides. A young woman named Bora watched the chaos from the back of the hall. She was the same one who had sent a message to Earth months ago. She had never received a reply, but she had not given up hope. "There must be something we can do," she said to herself. She decided to act on her own. She traveled to the war zone, to a destroyed station where refugees from both sides had gathered. It was a dangerous place, and glared at each other across the damaged hallways. Fighting could break out at any moment. Bora found a child crying in a corner. The child was alone, scared, hungry. Without thinking, Bora knelt down and offered the child some food from her pack. An adult saw this and approached angrily. "What are you doing to that child?" "I am feeding him," Bora said calmly. "He is hungry." "We do not need help. He is a child. He does not care about species or wars. He only knows he is afraid and hungry." The adult stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly his stone face softened. "You are different from other." "I learned from humans," Bora said quietly. "I watched how they treated everyone with kindness, no matter what species. I tried to learn their ways." They sat down beside her. "I knew a human once. He fixed my ship when no one else would help. He did not ask for payment. He said helping others was its own reward." He made a grinding sound that might have been a sad laugh. "I never thanked him properly. Now he is gone." They sat together in silence, watching the child eat. On Earth, a report about Bora's small act of kindness somehow reached the news. Elder's daughter showed it to her father. "Look," she said, "not all of them are cruel, some are learning." Read the report carefully. A small smile crossed his old face. One act of kindness, it is a start, but it is not enough. The council itself must change. Their leaders must change. "How will we know when they have changed enough?" "We will know," said, "when they stop demanding our return and start asking for it. When they admit their wrongs without making excuses. When they offer to change, not for our help, but because it is right." The war continued. A fleet attacked the battle lasted for 3 days. When it ended, a quarter of the capital city was in ruins. They responded by destroying an agricultural planet. 2 billion lost their food supply. On the council station, Elder received report after report of destruction. He stopped eating. He stopped sleeping. Dark circles formed under his many eyes. "This cannot continue," he said to his assistant. "We are destroying ourselves." "Then call the humans back," his assistant suggested. "I have tried, they do not respond." "Perhaps," the assistant hesitated, "perhaps we are asking in the wrong way." Looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" "We have been demanding their return, telling them they must help us, but they are not our servants. They never were, even though we treated them that way." The assistant took a deep breath. "Maybe we should apologize first, truly apologize, not to get their help but because we were wrong." Was silent for a long time. Pride warred with desperation in his heart. Pride had always won before, but now, watching his galaxy burn, pride seemed like a small thing. "Write a message," he said finally. "A real message. Tell them we are sorry. Tell them we were wrong. Tell them we understand now what they meant to us." The assistant nodded and hurried away. The message was sent to Earth. It was different from the previous demands. It was humble. It was honest. It admitted fault without making excuses. On Earth, Jin read the message aloud to a gathering of human leaders. When he finished, there was silence. "He sounds sincere," said. "Perhaps," Elder replied. "But words are easy. We need to see actions. One apology does not erase 300 years of cruelty." "Then what do we wait for?" Stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over a peaceful earth. "We wait for them to understand that the apology itself must be the goal, not a tool to get what they want. We wait for them to change because they want to be better, not because they need our help. And if they never reach that point?" Turn back to face the others. His eyes were sad but determined. "Then they will destroy themselves, and we will mourn them, but we will not save them from the consequences of their own choices. That is not cruelty. That is respect. We treat them as adults who must face what they have done." The war raged on. More planets burned. More beings died. And somewhere in the chaos, small acts of kindness began to spread. A feeding a child. A Myra doctor treating enemies. A pilot rescuing survivors regardless of species. The galaxy was learning, slowly, painfully, but it was learning. The question was whether it would learn fast enough to survive. 1 year had passed since humanity left the Galaxy Council. The war between them had finally ended, but only because both sides were too exhausted to continue fighting. Cities lay in ruins. Fleets drifted dead in space. Billions had died and billions more were displaced. But the worst was yet to come. Famine spread across 12 worlds. Humans had managed the agricultural systems of the galaxy for centuries. They had designed the irrigation networks, the harvest machines, the seed distribution programs. They had created computer systems that predicted weather and optimized planting schedules. Without humans to maintain these systems, they slowly failed. First, the machines broke down. Then the predictions became wrong. Then the crops failed. On the planet Cora, which had once fed 12 star systems, the fields were empty. The harvest machines stood silent and rusted. The few remaining workers did not know how to fix them. Commander watched the news reports from Earth. She was no longer a young woman. The past year had aged her. Her hair had streaks of gray now, and her eyes were tired. 12 worlds, she said quietly. 12 worlds starving. Her father, Elder, sat beside her. He was very old now, past 90, but his mind was still sharp. He looked at the images of hungry children with a heavy heart. "This is the consequence of their choices," he said, "not ours." "I know, Father, but it is hard to watch." "Yes, it is." They sat in silence, watching the suffering unfold across the galaxy. At the council station, Elder had called another emergency meeting. But this time, hardly anyone came. The Great Hall was nearly empty. Most delegates had returned to their home worlds to deal with their own crises. "We must do something," said to the handful who remained. "Our people are dying." "What can we do?" the Myra delegate asked. She looked thin and weak. Her own world was suffering. "We have no food to share. We have no ships to transport aid. We have nothing." "Then we must ask the humans again." "We have asked 100 times. They say no." Slammed his tentacles on the table. "Then we ask differently. We beg, we crawl, whatever it takes." The delegate, a new one who had replaced the old one after he died in the war, spoke up. "Perhaps begging is not enough. Perhaps we must offer something." "We have nothing to offer them." "We have one thing." The stone face was serious. "We can offer them power, real power, leadership of the council." The room went silent. For centuries, the Galaxy Council had been led by the oldest species, the ones who considered themselves superior. The idea of letting humans lead was unthinkable. "That is radical," the Myra delegate said carefully. "These are radical times," they replied. "Look around us. Our old ways have failed. Our pride has destroyed us. Maybe it is time to try something new." Thought about this for a long time. His entire life he had believed that his species was better than humans, smarter, more civilized, more worthy of leadership. Now, watching his galaxy crumble, he wondered if he had been wrong about everything. "I will consider it," he said finally. Meanwhile, on a refugee station near the war zone, Bora was doing what she could to help. She had become a leader of sorts among the refugees. Myra, beings of all species came to her for help and guidance. "How do you do it?" a young asked her one day. "How do you treat everyone the same?" "I ask myself what a human would do," Bora replied. "I try to see each person as an individual, not as a species. I try to understand their needs, their fears, their hopes. But it is so hard. We have hated each other for so long." "Hatred is a choice," Bora said gently. "Every day we can choose differently. It is not easy, but it is possible." The young nodded slowly. "I want to try. I want to be like the humans." Bora smiled. "Then you have already begun." On Earth, reports of these small changes reached the human leaders. Now a senior diplomat brought the news to a council meeting. "Things are shifting," she said. "More beings are speaking positively about humans. More are trying to adopt our ways of treating others. The younger generation especially is different from their parents." Jin, now quite old himself, listened carefully. "This is encouraging, but what of the leaders? What of the council?" "They are divided. Some want to continue as before. Others are talking about giving us leadership if we return." Elder, who attended the meeting despite his age, leaned forward. "Leadership, that is new, that is significant." "Is it enough?" asked. Was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps, but we must be careful. Power given out of desperation can be taken back when the desperation fades. We need them to truly change, not just make deals to survive." "How will we know the difference?" "We will know by what they do, not what they say. When they start helping each other without expecting anything in return. When they treat the weakest among them with respect. When they stop seeing species and start seeing individuals." Smiled sadly. "When they become what we hoped they would be, all those centuries ago when we first joined the council." The months passed. The famine grew worse. The council officially collapsed as a functioning body. Each species retreated to its own territory, struggling to survive. Commander received a report that made her heart sink. "The Emperor is dead," she told her father. "Assassinated by his own people. They blamed him for the war and the famine." Closed his eyes. "And who leads them now?" "No one knows. There is chaos, civil war perhaps." "The same is happening with the," continued. "Their old government has fallen. New factions are fighting for control." "Everything is falling apart," added quietly. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of the galaxy's suffering pressed down on them all. Finally, opened his eyes. "There is a saying among humans. The darkest hour is just before dawn. Perhaps the galaxy must fall completely before it can rise again." "And if it does not rise?" asked. "Then we will have our answer. We will know that they were never capable of change, that they would rather die than grow." His voice was heavy with sorrow. "But I do not believe that. I have seen too much good in the universe to believe that beings are incapable of learning." On the refugee station, Bora received news of the Emperor's death. Around her, refugees wept and cursed. Some celebrated. Some fell into despair. Bora stood on a platform and raised her voice. "Listen to me, all of you." The crowd quieted and turned to face her. "Our old world is dying. Our emperor is dead. Our government has fallen. You can see this as the end, or you can see it as a beginning." She looked at the crowd, at Anne and Myra standing side by side. "For the first time in our history, we have a chance to start over, to build something new, something better." "How?" someone shouted. "We have nothing." "We have each other," Bora replied. "We have beings who have learned to work together, to share, to care for one another regardless of species. That is more than we have ever had before." "But without the humans, how can we rebuild?" Bora smiled. We start by being worthy of their return, not by demanding it, not by begging for it, but by becoming the kind of galaxy they would want to return to. We prove that we have learned. We show them that their sacrifice was not in vain. In the crowd, the young who had spoken to Bora before raised his stone fist. "I am with you," he shouted. Others joined in, Myra all raising their voices together. On Earth, a recording of Bora's speech somehow reached the Human Council. They watched it in silence. When it ended, had tears in her eyes. She understands, she truly understands. Jin nodded slowly. Perhaps the dawn is finally coming. Elder said nothing, but for the first time in a long time, hope flickered in his ancient eyes. The galaxy had collapsed, but from the ruins, something new was beginning to grow. 2 years had passed since humanity left the Galaxy Council. The old council no longer existed. The great hall floated empty in space, its lights dim, its corridors silent. But something new was being built in its place. Bora had become the leader of a movement. It started on the refugee station, but it spread quickly. Beings of all species joined together, not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. They called themselves the New Unity. They had no army, they had no wealth. They had only a simple idea: treat others the way you want to be treated, help those in need, see individuals, not species. It was a human idea, and slowly it was changing the galaxy. On Earth, the human leaders watched these developments with growing interest. Regular reports came in about the New Unity's progress. They had organized food distribution to starving worlds. They had created peace agreements between former enemies. They had built schools where young beings learned languages and skills that had been forgotten. Elder received a delegation from the New Unity. He was very old now, past 95, and he rarely left his home. But for this meeting, he made an exception. Bora stood before him, accompanied by representatives from a dozen species. She bowed deeply. "Elder," she said, "I am honored to meet you. I have heard much about your wisdom." Smiled warmly. "And I have heard much about your courage, young Bora. You have accomplished more in 2 years than the Council did in centuries. We have tried to follow the example humans set for us. We have tried to become worthy of your respect. You have succeeded." Bora's eyes filled with tears. "Then, will you return? Will humanity rejoin the galaxy?" Was silent for a long moment. He looked at the beings standing before him, Myra and more. Former enemies standing together as friends. It was everything he had hoped to see all those years ago when he was a young diplomat. "We will discuss it," he said finally, "but I must ask you something first. Why do you want us back? Be honest." Bora took a deep breath. "At first I wanted you back because we needed your help, your technology, your skills, your ability to solve problems." She paused. "But now I want you back because we miss you, because the galaxy is incomplete without humanity, because you are our friends and we want our friends to come home." His old eyes grew wet. "That is a good answer." 1 week later, the Human Council made a decision. Commander stood before a crowd of millions on Earth. Behind her, thousands of human ships waited in orbit. Cameras broadcast her words across the planet and beyond. "For 2 years, we have watched the galaxy struggle," she said. "We have watched species who once mocked us learn to work together. We have watched beings who once treated us as servants begin to treat each other with respect. We have watched a new generation rise, a generation that understands what we tried to teach for 300 years. She paused, looking up at the sky. "Today, humanity returns to the stars, but we do not return as servants. We do not return as second-class citizens. We return as leaders, as partners, as equals." The crowd erupted in cheers. On the refugee station, Bora watched the broadcast with tears streaming down her face. Around her, beings of all species cheered and embraced each other. For the first time in years, there was hope. The human fleet arrived at the old council station 2 weeks later. Thousands of ships, carrying engineers, doctors, diplomats, teachers, and workers. They spread across the galaxy like seeds, bringing help wherever it was needed. Admiral, now retired but still respected, walked through the empty halls of the council station. Beside him walked his old companion. "It looks different," said, "smaller somehow." "Perhaps we have grown," replied. They reached the great hall. It was dark and dusty, but the structure was intact. Pressed a button and lights flickered to life. "This place needs work," he said. "Everything needs work. That is why we are here." They stood in silence, remembering the day they had left this hall. So much had changed since then, so much suffering, so much loss, but also so much growth. "Do you regret it?" asked. "Leaving, I mean, all those beings who died." Was quiet for a long time. "I think about them every day, every single day, but I believe we made the right choice. If we had stayed, nothing would have changed. They would still treat us as servants. They would still look down on us. The cycle would continue forever. And now there is a chance for something better, real change, real partnership." He smiled slightly. "It cost more than I ever imagined, but maybe, just maybe, it was worth it." The new council formed 6 months later. It was nothing like the old one. Humans held leadership positions, but so did beings of every species. Decisions were made by discussion and agreement, not by power and threats. The old hierarchies were gone. Elder was too old to travel to the station, but he watched the opening ceremony from Earth. His daughter sat beside him, along with his. "Look at them," said softly. And sitting side by side, Myra and sharing a table. "This is what I dreamed of so many years ago." "You lived to see it," Father said. "Your patience was rewarded." Shook his head. "It was not my patience that achieved this. It was the courage of beings like Bora. It was the suffering of millions who died in the war and the famine. It was the choice of a new generation to be better than their parents." He looked at his. "Remember this day. Remember that change is possible, but it comes at a great cost. Remember that sometimes the hardest thing is to wait, to trust that others can grow." At the new council, Bora was speaking. She had been chosen as the first speaker, representing all species. "We stand today in a new era," she said. "The old ways are dead. The old hatreds are buried. We have a chance to build something unprecedented. A galaxy where every being is valued, where every voice is heard, where we help each other not because we must, but because we choose to." She looked at the human delegates and smiled. "We have our friends back, our teachers, our partners, and this time we will not fail them. This time we will be worthy of their trust." Sat among the human delegates. She was older now, a respected leader in her own right. She thought about all the messages she had ignored over the years, all the pleas for help she had turned down. It had been the hardest thing she had ever done. But looking around the hall now, seeing species that had fought wars now working together, she understood. Sometimes you had to let things break before they could be rebuilt properly. Sometimes love meant stepping back and letting others learn. Jin, ancient but still alive, sat beside her. He leaned over and whispered, "Well done, well done." She smiled through her tears. That night there was a celebration across the galaxy. On 1,000 worlds, beings of all species gathered to mark the new beginning. They shared food, shared stories, shared hope. On Earth, Elder sat in his garden looking up at the stars. His family surrounded him, laughing and talking. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was healing. "Are you happy, Father?" asked. Smiled, "I am content, which is better than happy. Happy fades, content stays." "What do you think the future holds?" Was quiet for a moment, then he laughed softly. "I do not know, I am old. The future belongs to the young now." He looked at his playing in the garden. "But I think it will be good. I think they will make it good. Humans and aliens together. That was always the dream." He closed his eyes, feeling the warm night air on his face. Above him, the stars shone brightly, no longer cold and distant but full of friends. The galaxy had fallen apart, but humanity had helped put it back together, not by fighting, not by conquering, but by being patient, by being kind, by showing that there was a better way. And finally, after all those centuries, the galaxy had listened. The end was also a beginning, and for the first time the beginning was full of hope.